Hey there, Kas. Quiet here, isn't it? In this little space we've found, most of history, the kind you read in big, heavy books, is loud. It's the history of trumpets and marching feet, of speeches shouted from Senate balconies, and the clash of swords on a battlefield. It's the story of men with names that echo through the centuries. Caesar, Augustus, Trajan, Hadrian. It's the story of their triumphs, their conquests, their grand monuments. But we're not here for that history tonight. We're here for the quiet history. The history with no monuments. We're here to listen for the whispers in the margins. For the stories of the people whose names were never recorded, whose lives were considered as disposable as a broken pot or a worn-out sandal. We're going to be exploring the world of the Roman Empire. But from the very bottom, we're going to try and understand, as best we can, what it felt like to simply survive it. If this kind of calm, slow history helps you unwind, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely brings you peace. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. It's always strangely comforting to see who's out there falling asleep to the same quiet story, so dim the lights. Turn on a fan if you like that soft background hum. Settle in, and let's begin. You are in Sicily, but you do not know it as Sicily, the breadbasket of the Republic, the jewel of the Mediterranean. You do not know the grand histories of Syracuse or the Punic Wars fought across these hills. You know only this valley, this vast expanse of land that stretches from the dusty ridge in the east to the shimmering, hazy line of the sea in the west. This is your world. It is a latifundium, a great estate, though the word itself means nothing to you. It is simply the place you are. The sun is the first and last master of your day. Here, it is not a gentle, warming presence. It is a weight. In the heart of summer, it is a tyrant. It bleaches the very color from the sky, leaving a pale, washed-out blue that hurts to look at. It beats down on the soil, baking it into a cracked, pale brown shell that crunches under the heel of your worn leather sandal. The heat radiates upwards, shimmering invisible waves above the endless rows of wheat, making the distant olive groves tremble as if they are not real. You live your life according to this heat. You have learned its language, its moods. You know, the false coolness of the pre-dawn, a brief, merciful respite where the air holds a hint of dampness, a memory of the sea. This is the air you breathe in deeply as you are herded from the sleeping barracks, a single moment of clarity before the oppression begins. You know, the climbing, insistent heat of mid-morning, when the sweat begins to bead on your brow and glue your rough tunic to your back. You know, the searing, breathless peak of midday, when the overseer, if he is feeling something close to mercy, might allow a brief pause for water and hard bread in the sliver of shade cast by a lonely cypress tree. The sounds of this place are the sounds of labor and nature intertwined. The day is underscored by a constant, low-level hum of insects. The frantic, high-pitched buzzing of cicadas rises and falls in waves. A sound so relentless, it becomes a kind of silence. The background, noise of your existence. You hear the dry rustle of wheat stalks against each other, a sound like 1,000 quiet whispers. You hear the rhythmic thump, thump thump of a hoe breaking the hard earth in a nearby field, the grunt of the man wielding it timed to, the fall of the blade. Sometimes a different sound breaks through. The sharp, piercing cry of a hawk circling high overhead, a speck of black against the immense, empty blue, or the sudden, frantic bleating of a goat that has wandered too far from the herd. Closer, you hear the creak of a cart's axle, a sound of agony, a desperate need for the grease that is too precious to waste on it. And always, somewhere in the distance, is the sound of a human voice, sharp and commanding. It is the overseer, the Vilicus, his words cutting through the air, correcting a slouched back, urging a faster pace, a reminder of the order of things. The smells are thick, earthy, and unchanging. The dominant scent is the dust. It's a fine, pale dust that coats everything. It's on your skin, in your hair, at the back of your throat. When the wind, the sirocco, blows from the south, it carries the even finer, hotter dust of Africa, and the air becomes a gritty, ochre haze. You smell the sharp green scent of the olive trees, especially in the autumn during the harvest, when the fruit is bruised and the oil stains your hands. You smell the sun-baked straw, the sweat of the man working beside you, the sourness of your own unwashed body. You smell the fermentation of grapes after the harvest, a sweet, cloying smell that hangs over the estate for weeks. And beneath it all, when the wind turns just right, you can sometimes catch the faint, salty temps of the distant, inaccessible sea. It is a smell of elsewhere, a place you will never go. Your world is defined by its textures. You feel the hard-baked earth under your feet, the sharp edges of stones, the prickle of dry thistles that catch at your ankles. When you work in the wheat fields, you feel the constant, tiny cuts on your hands and arms from the sharp edges of the stalks. The wool of your tunic is coarse and scratchy against your skin, especially when it is damp with sweat. The handles of your tools, the hoe, the sickle are worn smooth by the grip of countless hands before yours. Yet they still manage to raise splinters and calluses. Water is life, and it is brutally scarce. There is a single well that serves the slave population. The stone around its edge is worn smooth and dark. The water you drink is lukewarm and tastes of minerals and earth. It is pulled up in a heavy leather bucket, and your daily ration is measured and deliberate. You are often thirsty. The feeling is a constant companion, a dull ache in your throat, a dryness on your tongue. To see the master's villa high on the hill, with its fountains and shaded gardens, is to see a different reality, one where water is not a desperate need, but a form of decoration. The landscape is vast, but your world is small. Its boundaries are invisible but absolute. You know, without ever being told how far you can walk. The edge of the wheat fields, the beginning of the olive grove, the dusty track that leads to the grazing pastures. To go beyond this is not a choice you have. The world outside this valley is a rumor, a story told by a new slave brought in chains, a whisper of mountains or great cities. But here, in this sun-scorched basin, is the entirety of your known existence. The light changes at the end of the day, and with it, the mood of the land. The sun, as it begins to sink towards the sea, can smell but not touch, loses its tyrannical power. The light softens, turning from a harsh white to a deep, warm gold. Long, distorted shadows stretch out from the trees, from the buildings, from your own weary body. The air begins to cool, and for a few precious moments, the world feels beautiful. The hills in the distance turn a soft purple. A breeze might pick up, carrying the scent of wild thyme and rosemary from the rocky slopes. This is the time of day when you can almost believe you are just a person on the land, not a tool that owns nothing, not even the flesh on your bones. But this peace is fleeting. As the last sliver of the sun disappears, a profound darkness rushes in. There are no lights here, save for the single flickering torch at the entrance to the overseer's quarters. The world you knew by sight is gone, replaced by a world of sound and fear. The familiar landscape becomes alien, filled with unseen things. The wind rustling the leaves of an olive tree sounds like a predator. The snap of a twig is an omen. The night belongs to the ghosts, the Lemuries, the unhappy dead who are said to wander these fields. Your small physical world of the day shrinks to an even smaller psychological world of the night. You are here, and you will be here tomorrow when the sun rises again to reclaim its dominion. Your home is a long, low building made of rough fieldstones and sun-dried mud bricks. It is called the ergastulum. You do not call it this, you call it nothing. It is simply the place you are put at night. From the outside, it is more like a pen for animals than a home for people. It is windowless. The single entrance is a heavy, solid wooden door, reinforced with iron straps and fitted with a thick bar that is dropped into place from the outside after you have been herded in. There is no way to open it from within. This is not a place of shelter. It is a place of storage. When you step inside, the change in atmosphere is immediate and overwhelming. The air, which was hot and dry outside, becomes thick, heavy, and stale. It is a cocktail of smells that have soaked into the very walls. The sour odor of unwashed bodies. The ammonia temps of urine from the corner trench that serves as a latrine. The musty, decaying scent of old straw, and the faint, ever-present smell of human despair. The darkness is almost total. After the golden light of the setting sun, your eyes struggle to adjust. The only illumination comes from the cracks in the roof or the sliver of space beneath the door, casting faint, ghostly lines on the floor. The floor is packed earth. It is uneven, damp in places, and cold to the touch, even after the hottest day. Over the years, it has been worn smooth in the pathways between the sleeping platforms, but in the corners, it remains dusty and littered with small stones and bits of refuse. It is the first thing your bare feet feel when you are roused in the pre-dawn blackness, a cold, gritty shock that reminds you instantly of where you are. The roof is a simple construction of wooden beams topped with terracotta tiles. Many of the tiles are cracked or have slipped out of place. When it rains, which is rare in the summer but a deluge in the winter, the roof leaks. Water drips down in a dozen different places, turning the packed earth floor to mud and soaking. The straw bedding, the sound of a winter rain, is not a comforting patter. It is a series of slow, steady drips, each one a small reminder of the misery of being cold and damp. You sleep on a low wooden platform that runs the length of the wall. There are no partitions, no sense of private space. You are shouldered to shoulder with dozens of others, men and women packed together. Your bed is a thin pallet of straw. It is a lumpy, uneven surface that does its best to mock the idea of rest. The straw is old, broken into a fine dusty chaff that gets into your clothes and your hair. It is alive with its own ecosystem of fleas and other smaller insects that bite and crawl in the darkness. You learn to sleep through the itching, just as you learn to sleep through the snoring, the coughing, and the quiet weeping of the person next to you. Your blanket is your most significant possession. It is a rectangle of coarse, brown wool woven on the estate's looms. It is heavy, stiff, and greasy, with the lanolin from the sheep and the dirt of years of use. It smells of damp wool and smoke. It is a pathetic defense against the biting cold of a winter night. But it is all you have. You pull it up to your chin, and the familiar, rough texture against your skin is a small, constant anchor in the darkness. You guard it jealously. To lose it or have it stolen would be a catastrophe. Aside from this blanket, you own almost nothing. There is no space for possessions, no concept of them. You have the tunic on your back, a simple, sleeveless garment of undyed wool, crudely stitched at the sides. It hangs to your knees. It is stiff when new, but over months of wear, it softens slightly, molding to the shape of your body. It is your only clothing. You work in it, you sleep in it, and you will likely die in it. You also have your sandals. The sole is a thick piece of rawhide, cut to the shape of your foot. Leather thongs loop between your toes and around your ankle to hold it in place. They do little to cushion your feet from the hard, stony ground, but they offer some protection from the worst of the sharp rocks and thorns. Like everything else, they are in a constant state of disrepair. A broken thong must be knotted back together, a worn sole endured until a replacement is issued, which happens rarely. The tools you use are not yours. They are extensions of the master's will, placed into your hands at sunrise and taken away at sunset. When you work in the fields, you are given a sickle. The blade is iron, sharpened on a whetstone by the blacksmith. The handle is a simple piece of curved wood. Feel its weight in your hand, a familiar heft, if you know its balance, the precise way you must swing it to cut the wheat stalks cleanly without wasting motion. The wood of the handle is dark and polished smooth by the sweat and friction of your palm. It feels like a part of your own arm, a grim symbiosis of flesh and iron. Or perhaps you are given a hoe, the sarculum. Its handle is long and rough, prone to giving splinters. The iron head is heavy, lifting it and bringing it down again and again to break the sun-baked soil is a rhythmic agony. You feel the shock of the impact travel up the handle into your arms and settle as a dull ache in your shoulders and lower back. This ache is a part of you. It is with you when you wake. It is with you when you work. And it is with you when you try to sleep. These are your primary possessions: a scratchy blanket, a single tunic, a pair of failing sandals, and the temporary loan of a tool that wears you down even as you wear it down. There is no concept of a home as a place of comfort or identity. There are no pictures on the wall, no cherished mementos from a past life. Your past has been erased. Your future is this. The ergastulum is a machine for living, a place designed to keep you alive enough to work tomorrow. It offers no softness, no beauty, no respite. It is a physical manifestation of your status. You are an instrument, a tool with a voice. And this is where tools are kept when they are not being used. The tangible reality of this place, its cold floor, its biting insects, its suffocating air, is a constant, crushing lesson in what you are and what you are not. The day begins in darkness, not the gentle, quiet darkness of peaceful sleep, but the thick, oppressive blackness of the barracks. The first sign of the coming day is not light, but a sound. It is the grating noise of the heavy bar being lifted from the outside of the door. That sound is a switch being thrown. It ends the brief, troubled period of rest and begins the long, grueling period of labor. The overseer's voice cuts through the stale air, harsh and impatient. There is no gentle waking. You are on your feet in an instant. The cold, damp earth, a shock to your system. There is a scramble for the door, a jostling of bodies in the narrow space. You step out into the pre-dawn gloom, the air cool and tasting of dust. The sky to the east is a pale, bruised purple. This is the only moment of the day that holds a sliver of peace, and it is fleeting. You do not choose your work. The work is assigned. Perhaps today you are sent to the wheat fields. You walk there in a long, silent line with 20 other men. The only sounds are the crunch of sandals on the gravelly path and the occasional barked order from the villicus who follows. On a mule, you are handed a sickle, its iron blade cold to the touch. You take your place in the line. The wheat stands tall, golden in the first rays of the sun. The work begins. It is a rhythm, a terrible, monotonous dance that will last until the sun is high in the sky. You bend from the waist. Your back already begins to complain, a low, familiar ache. You grasp a handful of wheat stalks in your left hand. The stalks are rough, their edges surprisingly sharp. In your right hand, you swing the sickle, a short, sharp, cutting motion. Swish. The wheat heads fall. You place the cut stalks behind you in a neat pile. You take one step forward. You bend. You grasp. Swing. Swish. Step. Bend. Grasp. Swing. Swish. This is what you do. The sun begins to climb. The coolness of the morning burns away. Sweat starts to run down your forehead, stinging your eyes. It drips from the end of your nose. It soaks the back of your tunic. The dust from the dry earth and the chaff from the wheat mix with your sweat, forming a gritty film on your skin. Your throat becomes dry. You are given water, but never enough to quench your thirst. Only enough to keep you working. Your mind, at first, might wander. You might think of a dream you had, or the face of someone from a life before this one. But the monotony is a powerful sedative. After an hour, your thoughts dissolve. There is only the rhythm. Bend, grasp, swing. Your body becomes a machine. Your muscles scream, first with a sharp pain, then a dull, enduring burn. Your lower back feels like a hot coal is lodged within it. Your hand cramps around the wooden handle of the sickle. Splinters you don't notice now will make themselves known later. Still, you continue. Bend, grasp, swing. To slow down is to invite the attention of the overseer. His attention comes with a whip or a rod. The pain of the labor is a constant. The pain of punishment is a sharp, terrifying variable you work to avoid. Or perhaps you are not in the fields. Perhaps you are assigned to the olive grove. Here, the work is different. If it is harvest time, your job is to beat the branches. You are given a long, flexible pole. You stand beneath the ancient, gnarled trees, and you beat the branches hard. A shower of small, hard olives rains down, bouncing off your head and shoulders. Others below, women and children mostly, gather them from the dusty ground. The work is jarring. Each strike of the pole against a branch sends a shockwave down your arms and into your shoulders. The repetition is mind-numbing. You stare up into dude, the canopy of silver-green leaves against the bright sky, and you beat the tree all day. Or maybe your labor is at the great olive press. This is indoor work, but it is no relief. The air inside the pressing shed is thick, hot, and smells overwhelmingly of the bitter, green scent of crushed olives. Your task is to turn the millstone. A massive stone wheel, set on its edge, is rolled in a circular trough filled with olives. A heavy wooden beam is attached to the stone's axle. You and another man are harnessed to this beam. You lean into it, your shoulder pressed against the rough wood, and you walk. You walk in a circle, all day long. The floor is slick with oil and pulp. The effort is immense. It is a Sisyphean task, a circle of toil that has no end. Your world shrinks to the few feet of stone floor in front of you. The rough texture of the beam and the burning strain in your legs and back. This is what you do. You do not work for a wage. You do not work for a sense of accomplishment. You do not see the bread that will be made from the wheat. You do not taste the fine oil that will be pressed from the olives. You work so that you will be given your evening ration of pottage. You work so that you will be allowed to sleep in the barracks. You work to avoid a beating. You work because you are a slave. And this is the function of a slave. The sun reaches its zenith and begins its slow descent. The quality of the light changes, but the labor does not. The shadows lengthen. Your body is a symphony of pain. Every muscle, every joint cries out. Your hands are raw. Your back is a knot of fire. Finally, when the sun touches the horizon, the overseer calls a halt. You are not finished. The tools must be gathered, counted, and returned. You line up again and walk back, a shuffling, exhausted procession of ghosts in the twilight. Your body is caked in a layer of grime, sweat, and dust. But there is no washing. There is only the brief, grim ritual of the evening meal, and then the finality of the barred door. You collapse onto your straw pallet, the ache in your bones so profound it feels like a part of your soul. You have done this today. You will do this tomorrow. You will do this until the day you can do it no more. This is what you do, and in the exhausted, dreamless sleep that sometimes follows, the rhythm continues. Bend, grasp, swing. Food is not a pleasure. It is not a source of comfort or an occasion for community. Food is fuel. It is a biological necessity, a problem that is solved twice a day in the most rudimentary way possible. The concept of taste is a luxury as distant and unattainable as the concept of freedom. You do not think about what you would like to eat. You think only of the gnawing emptiness in your stomach, a hollow ache that is the constant companion to the ache in your muscles. Your day is bookended by 2 meals. The first is after the pre-dawn roll call, before you are marched to your assigned labor. It is simple, designed for speed. You are given a piece of bread. Do not picture a light, airy loaf. This is panis sordidus, dirty bread. It is a small, dense, heavy thing made from the coarsest flour barley or spelt, mixed with whatever chaff and grit was left over from the milling process. It is dark in color, almost gray. The texture is its most defining characteristic. It is hard, not just crusty, but hard all the way through, as if it were baked days ago. Your teeth struggle to tear a piece off. You must chew it for a long time, your jaw working hard. It is a laborious process. The taste is bland, earthy, with a faint sourness from the starter. Sometimes you can feel the grit of tiny stones between your teeth. You eat it quickly, standing in the dusty yard, because the overseer is impatient to begin the day's work. You might be given a cup of Laura, a thin, sour wine made by soaking the pressed grape skins and stems in water. It is more water than wine, a slightly acidic liquid that does little more than wet your throat. This is your breakfast: hard bread and sour wine water. It sits like a stone in your belly as you begin your long day of labor. The main meal comes. At the end of the day, after the tools have been put away, and just before you are locked into the barracks for the night, this is the meal your body has been screaming for since midday. The smell of it is the first thing you notice as you trudge back from the fields. It is a simple, unchanging smell. It is the smell of boiling grain. You line up, each of you holding a rough pottery bowl. It is your only piece of cutlery, and you guard it as you guard your blanket. An older slave, his working days behind him, ladles out the evening's meal from a large soot-blackened cauldron bubbling over a fire. The meal is pulse. It is the food of soldiers, of farmers, of the poor, and it is the absolute staple of your existence. Pulse is a pottage, a thick porridge made from boiling crushed wheat or barley and water. What you are given is the crudest form of it. Thick, gray, viscous substance. It plops into your bowl with a heavy, wet sound. There is no seasoning save for a pinch of salt, the most valuable commodity on the estate. Salt is what makes the food technically edible. Without it, the blandness would be suffocating. You receive your ration and find a place on the ground to eat. You have no spoon. You scoop the thick pottage with your fingers or with a shard of your hard morning bread, if you were disciplined enough to save some. The pulse is hot and it burns your fingertips. You learn to let it cool a little, but the hunger is a ravenous beast, and you often eat too quickly, scalding your mouth. The texture is monotonous. It is a gritty mush. The taste is ... nothing. It is the taste of boiled grain and salt. It is the taste of pure sustenance. There is no joy in it. The act of eating is mechanical. Scoop, lift, swallow, repeat. Your focus is entirely on filling the aching void in your stomach. Variety is a forgotten concept. Day after day, week after week, the meal is the same. Gray pottage. Sometimes there are additions. If an ox has died of old age or sickness, its stringy meat might be boiled for hours and shredded into the pottage. These are rare, celebrated occasions, so small, tough flecks of meat in your bowl are a treasure, something to be chewed slowly and deliberately. More often, the addition might be some fava beans or lentils thrown into the pot to make the grain go further. These soften to mush, adding little in the way of flavor, but they change the texture slightly, a novelty in a world of sameness sometimes. Very rarely, you might find your own supplement. A snail found clinging to a vine, a handful of bitter greens growing wild by a ditch. These are risky treasures. To be caught taking something from the land, even something as insignificant as a weed, could be seen as theft. But the urge for a different taste, for something, anything, other than the gray mush, is a powerful motivator. On the days of the olive harvest, a small amount of the lowest quality oil, the dregs from the final pressing, might be stirred into the cauldron. The addition of fat is a miracle. It makes the pottage slide down your throat more easily. It coats your mouth with a richness that is so alien it is almost shocking. It quiets the hunger in a way the plain grain never can. These are the best days you eat in near silence. The only sounds are the scraping of fingers in bowls and the slurping of the hungry. You are surrounded by others, but the meal is a solitary affair. Your focus is singular. You lick your bowl clean, ensuring not a single calorie is wasted. The warmth of the food spreads through your belly, a temporary truce in the war against hunger. It gives you just enough energy to face the cold night in the barracks and the prospect of the coming day. This is what you eat. You eat what is cheapest and most filling. You eat what can be produced in vast quantities on the very land you work. You are part of a cycle. You sow the grain, you harvest the grain, you mill the grain, and then you are fed the grain, just enough to give you the strength to sow the grain again. Food is not life. It is the administration of life. It is the careful calculation of the master, the precise measure of fuel required to keep his human machinery functioning. And every night, as you scrape the last of the gray paste from your bowl, you are reminded that you are just a part of that machine. The world is a pyramid, and you are the stone at its very bottom. You do not think in terms of politics or economics. You think in terms of presence and absence, of power felt and power seen. There are two beings who define the boundaries of your life, the Villicus and the Dominus, the overseer and the master. The Villicus is the face of power. He is a constant, oppressive presence. He is often a slave himself or a freedman. He has been given a measure of authority, and he wields it with the zeal of a man who knows his own position is precarious. He is not a distant concept. He is a physical reality. You know, the sound of his mule's hooves on the path. You know, the particular way he clears his throat before he shouts an order. You know the weight of his gaze on your back as you work. His job is to extract the maximum amount of labor from you and the others. He is the accountant of your exhaustion. He walks the fields, his shadow falling over you as you stoop to your tasks. He carries a staff, a rod of vinewood called a vitus. It is his symbol of office and his instrument of casual correction. If you are working too slowly, if your posture is slumped, if you pause for a moment too long to wipe the sweat from your eyes, you will feel the sharp, stinging crack of the vitus across your shoulders or the backs of your legs. It is not a formal punishment. It is a communication, a reminder, as casual as a word. Fear is the primary color of your relationship with him. It is a low, constant hum beneath the surface of your day. You avoid his eyes, you listen for his approach. Your movements become more efficient, more deliberate when he is near. You learn to read his moods. A stormy silence is more dangerous than an angry shouting. You see him as a force of nature, like the punishing sun or the biting winter wind, something to be endured, not understood. He is the gatekeeper of your immediate survival. He determines your work assignment. He measures your food. He is the one who will decide if your ailment is real or an attempt to shirk labor. To be on the wrong side of the Vilicus is to live in a state of constant, low-grade terror. And then, there is the Dominus, the master. He is an almost mythical figure. You might see him only a few times a year, if at all. He does not live on this estate year-round. He has a grand house in Rome or another city. He comes here only to inspect his property, to ensure his investment is profitable. His arrival is an event. Word spreads through the barracks like a ripple. The Vilicus becomes tense, agitated. The entire estate is scrubbed and set in order. When the master arrives, it is in a carriage, accompanied by house slaves dressed in fine livery. He seems to belong to a different species. His clothes are clean, dyed in bright colors. He smells of perfumes, not sweat and dust. He does not walk the fields. He surveys them from horseback, his face impassive. You do not interact with him. You are part of the landscape he is observing. He might point in your direction, and you feel a chill run down your spine, but he is speaking to the Vilicus, asking about yields, about numbers. You are a number. You are an instrumentum vocale, a tool that speaks. This is your legal definition, a fact you feel in your bones, even if you do not know the words. You have no rights, no legal personhood. Your body, your labor, your children, they all belong to him. He can have you beaten for any reason. He can have you sold, separating you from the few human connections you have managed to form. He holds the power of life and death over you. But it is an absent, godlike power, exercised through his intermediary, the overseer. This hierarchy is the unshakable reality of your world. You owe the master everything. You owe him your labor, from the moment you can walk until the moment you can no longer stand. You owe him any child you bear. They are born into slavery, his property from their first breath. There is no concept of a wage or payment. Your payment is your continued existence. The pottage in your bowl, the straw on your pallet. These are not rights, but expenses he incurs to maintain his property. You see the hierarchy in the world around you. You see the villicus living in a small, sturdy house with his own slave concubine and better rations. You see the master's villa on the hill, a place of impossible luxury, with its painted walls, its mosaic floors, its shaded courtyards. The distance between your existence in the ergastulum and his in the villa is not just a matter of wealth. It is a chasm between two different kinds of humanity. Power manifests in small, daily humiliations. It is in being forbidden to look the overseer in the eye. It is in the fact that your name, likely given to you by the master, and not the one you were born with, can be changed at his whim. It is in the knowledge that any small act of defiance, a muttered word, a work slowdown, can bring about a disproportionately brutal punishment. Formal punishments are a spectacle of terror, designed to remind everyone of the rules. A flogging in the center of the yard, a branding, or, in the most extreme cases, crucifixion, the ultimate penalty reserved for rebellious slaves. The threat of this is always there, a dark cloud at the edge of your consciousness. You serve because you have no choice. The system is absolute, monolithic. It is reinforced by law, by custom, and by the ever-present threat of violence. Your world is stripped down to a simple, brutal equation. Obedience equals survival. And so you serve. You lower your eyes. You work until your body screams. You accept the pottage and the straw pallet as your lot. You exist at the bottom of the pyramid, feeling its full, crushing weight every moment of your life. Beyond the immediate, physical threats of the overseer's rod and the master's whim, your world is saturated with a deeper, more mysterious kind of fear. This is the fear of the unseen, the intangible forces that govern luck, health, and life itself. You live in a world where misfortune is not random. It is an attack. Sickness is the most common and terrifying of these threats. When someone in the barracks falls ill, it is not seen simply as a biological event. It is an invasion. Perhaps they have breathed in miasma, bad air, that has risen from a stagnant ditch or a decaying animal carcass. The air itself can be a poison, carrying disease on its currents. So, you learn to be wary of certain smells, certain damp places, associating them with the fever and the cough that can carry a strong man away in a week. Or perhaps the sickness is a curse. Maybe the sick man slighted a neighbor or looked at someone the wrong way. Perhaps he is the victim of the malus oculus, the evil eye. You'll believe that envy is a powerful, dangerous force. A person who covets another's health or meager possessions can, with a single envious glance, inflict illness and ruin. To ward this off, you might secretly own a small, crude amulet, perhaps a piece of bone with a symbol scratched into it, or a pouch of foul-smelling herbs worn under your tunic. These things are forbidden. The master does not want you to have personal property or engage in superstition, but the risk of owning them is less than the risk of facing the unseen. World unprotected, you might trace the illness to the displeasure of the gods, or more likely, the local spirits. You do not concern yourself much with the great gods of Rome, Jupiter, Juno, Mars. They are the gods of the master, distant and powerful figures who live in marble temples and concern themselves with armies and empires. Your world is populated by smaller, more ancient, and more intimate spirits. The spirit of the old oak tree at the edge of the pasture, the spirit that dwells in the well, the Lares, the household gods of the estate to whom the Villicus makes offerings. To offend one of these entities is to invite disaster. Perhaps the sick man took wood from a sacred grove, or failed to leave a small offering of his bread near. The well, the world of spirits, is a minefield of potential transgressions. Death is a constant presence, but it is the world of the dead that haunts you. You believe that a person who dies angry or violently or without proper burial rites does not rest. Their spirit becomes a larva or a lemur, a hungry, malevolent ghost that wanders the night, filled with bitterness for the living. The darkness of the night is their domain. Every creak of the roof, every gust of wind that rattles the door of the barracks could be one of them trying to get in. This is why the darkness is so terrifying. It is not empty. It is populated. You pull your rough blanket tighter, not just against the cold, but against the touch of a ghostly hand. To combat these threats, you have a body of folk knowledge, a collection of remedies and rituals passed down in whispers from the older slaves. For a fever, you might be told to tie a specific type of knot in a cord and bury it to heal a wound that won't close. You might be instructed to find a spider's web and press it into the cut. For a persistent cough, you might chew on a specific bitter root found only in one shaded part of the estate. These remedies are a blend of practical herbalism and sympathetic magic. The foul taste of a plant is thought to drive out the foul spirit of the illness. The binding of a knot is thought to bind the disease itself. You do not question the logic. You only know that sometimes it seems to work, and when it doesn't, the failure is not in the remedy, but in the power of the force you are fighting against. You believe in omens and portents. The world is constantly speaking to you, if you know how to listen. A crow flying from the left is a bad sign. An owl hooting during the day foretells a death. An itch in your left palm means you will lose something. A stumble on the threshold of the barracks is a warning for the entire day. These small observations create a map of your luck, a way to navigate the invisible currents of fate. This psychological landscape of fear is as real and as confining as the physical boundaries of the estate. The fear of the overseer governs your actions during the day, but the fear of the unseen governs your thoughts, your dreams, and your understanding of the world. It provides an explanation for the cruelty and randomness of life. It is not simply that you are unlucky or that life is unfair. It is that you are under constant assault from a world of spirits, curses, and malevolent forces. Your life is not just a struggle for physical survival against labor and hunger. It is a constant, desperate spiritual battle against a host of abstract threats that are to you as real as the stone floor beneath your feet. Night does not fall here. It consumes. The slow, golden fade of twilight is a brief, deceptive pause before the world is swallowed by an absolute and profound darkness. There are no streetlights, no glowing windows, nothing to hold the blackness at bay. The only man-made light is the single, sputtering torch near the overseer's quarters, a tiny, lonely star in a sea of ink. Once the heavy bar falls on the door of the ergastulum, you are plunged into a different world, one governed by sound, touch, and imagination. The darkness inside the barracks is deeper still. It is a physical presence, a thick, heavy blanket that smothers the senses. Your eyes, straining, can make out nothing. There is no shape, no form, no distinction between the floor, the walls, and the low ceiling. You navigate this space by memory and touch, your bare feet shuffling on the packed earth, your hands outstretched to feel for the edge of the sleeping platform. You find your spot on the long, shared bed. There is no privacy here. This is not a personal space. It is a communal trough of humanity. You lie down shoulder to shoulder with the others. You feel the warmth of the body next to you. You smell their sour breath. You hear every rustle, every sigh, every cough. The intimacy is not one of choice or comfort. It is an enforced animal closeness. You settle onto your straw pallet. The straw, flattened and broken down into chaff, offers little comfort. It is lumpy and smells of dust and mildew. You feel the familiar, persistent itch of fleas. They are a fact of life, an irritation you have learned to mostly ignore. You pull up your coarse wool blanket, its familiar weight and rough texture, a small island of personal reality in the anonymous darkness. Sleep does not come easily. Your body aches from the day's labor, deep throbbing pain in your lower back, a sharp sting from a splinter in your hand, the raw rubbing of your sandal strap on your ankle. These small agonies keep you tethered to consciousness. The air is thick and difficult to breathe, filled with the exhalations of 50 other people. The soundscape of the night is intimate and unsettling. You hear the symphony of troubled sleep around you, the deep rumbling snore of the man to your left, the wet, hacking cough of someone in the corner, a sound that sends a shiver of fear through the room. Is it a simple cold, or the beginning of something worse? You hear whimpers, quiet sobs that someone is trying to stifle. You hear teeth grinding. Occasionally, someone will cry out in their sleep, a muffled shout of terror from a nightmare. These are the sounds of exhausted, broken bodies and troubled minds. Often, do not sleep through the night in one long stretch. You experience what later generations would call first and second sleep. You might fall into a deep, heavy, and often dreamless slumber for a few hours, a near unconsciousness born of pure physical depletion. Then, sometime in the dead of night, you wake up. This period of waking is a strange, suspended time. The barracks are quieter now. Many are in their deepest sleep. You lie there in the total blackness, fully awake, your mind freed from the drudgery of the day begins to wander. This is a dangerous time. It is when the full weight of your existence can descend upon you. Memories of your past life, of the family you were stolen from, of the home you lost, can surface with a startling, painful clarity. The hopelessness of your future can feel immense. A wall of darkness as solid as the one you are staring into. It is also a time when dreams are considered. If you had a dream during your first sleep, you might try to decipher its meaning. Dreams are not just random firings of the brain. They are messages. They could be omens from the gods or visitations from ancestral spirits. A dream of falling might mean a loss of status, which for you is impossible. So perhaps it means death. A dream of water could mean purification, or it could mean drowning. The interpretation is a source of anxiety and quiet discussion. In the morning, you might whisper your dream to the person next to you, seeking their wisdom. This waking period is also when you are most aware of the world outside the barracks. You hear the hoot of an owl, and you wonder if it is an omen. You hear the wind, and it sounds like voices, like the whispering of the restless dead, the Lemuries, who are said to be most active in this deep part of the night. The fear is a cold knot in your stomach. Eventually, your exhaustion overtakes your anxiety, and you drift back into the second sleep. This sleep is often lighter, more filled with strange, fleeting dreams. It is a shallow, less restorative rest. You are floating just below the surface of consciousness, and the sound of the bar being lifted from the door in the pre-dawn will pull you instantly back to the grim reality of your life. You wake up feeling not rested, but simply less tired than you were when you lay down. Your body is stiff, your mouth is dry, and the aches have settled deep into your bones. The night has offered not a respite, but merely a pause. It was a journey through darkness, fear, and troubled dreams. A temporary storage in a human warehouse before the next day's labor begins. You rise from the shared straw. Another night survived, another day to be endured. The rhythm of your life, as brutal and monotonous as it is still a rhythm. You know what to expect. The sun, the labor, the hunger, the barracks. It is a known and terrible certainty. The ultimate crisis comes when that rhythm is broken, when the familiar hardship is replaced by a new and unknown terror. The crisis is not a single event, but a slow, creeping dread that seeps into the foundations of your world. It begins as a rumor, a whisper passed between slaves in the field, a worried look on the overseer's face. It is a plague, a new sickness, brought on a ship from the east, is moving through the land. At first, it is a distant story, something happening in the port cities. But then you hear of it on a neighboring estate. And then it arrives. It does not arrive with a clap of thunder. It arrives with a cough. A man you have worked beside for years. A man whose sweat you have smelled and whose snores you have heard every night develops a fever. This is not unusual, but this fever is different. It burns hotter. It is accompanied by a racking cough that brings up blood. Pustules, dark and angry, appear on his skin. Fear, which was a constant background noise, becomes a shrieking siren. The man is not cared for. He is isolated, dragged to a small, abandoned shed, and left with a jug of water. The master's logic is cold and brutal. One sick slave is a loss, but an epidemic that shuts down the harvest is a catastrophe. The man dies alone in the shed. His body is burned, not buried. The smell of it hangs in the air for a day, a scent of scorched meat and terror. Then another person falls ill, and another, the fragile, enforced community of the barracks fractures. You begin to look at the person next to you, not as a fellow sufferer, but as a potential source of death. You try not to breathe too deeply when you are near someone who coughs. You scrutinize the skin of your neighbors for the first telltale signs of the rash. The shared space of the ergastulum, once merely oppressive, now feels like a death trap. Every night, you are locked in a room with the pestilence. The rules of survival change. The overseer, his face pale with his own fear, drives you harder. The harvest must be brought in, plague or no plague. He stays further away from you now, shouting his orders from a distance. The whip is used more freely, as if by inflicting a familiar pain, he can ward off the unfamiliar one. The work in the fields becomes a desperate race against the sickness. You are weaker now. The rations have not increased, but your body is fighting. A constant, low-level battle against an invisible enemy. You feel a profound exhaustion that has nothing to do with the labor. Every morning you wake up and take a silent inventory of your own body. Is your throat sore? Do you feel too warm? Is that an insect bite on your arm or something more sinister? The world shrinks. Your focus, once on the simple, brutal task of getting through the day, is now on the even simpler, more brutal task of getting through the next hour. You watch as strong men are reduced to shivering, delirious wrecks in a matter of days. You see the pile of bodies for the fire grow larger. The old folk remedies and magical charms are useless against this onslaught. The spirits, it seems, have unleashed a fury that no amulet can ward off. The hierarchy, for the first time, shows its cracks. The villicus falls sick. For a few days, there is chaos. No one is there to drive you to the fields. You huddle in the barracks, a strange and terrifying freedom. But freedom without food is just a faster death. The hunger becomes as sharp as the fear. Without the overseer, the system that provides your meager pottage breaks down. A new overseer is appointed, a man even more ruthless than the last, desperate to restore order. But the order is gone. Too many are sick. Too many are dead. The fields are only half harvested. The wheat rots on the stalk. The olives fall from the trees and turn to mush on the ground. You can see the coming winter. You know that the plague will be followed by famine. The grain stores will be low. The master, from his safe villa in the city, will still demand his share. What is left for you will be less than what you need to survive. This is the breaking point. The system designed to exploit you is itself breaking down. But its collapse does not bring freedom. It brings a new, more profound level of suffering. The fear of the whip is replaced by the fear of a slow, agonizing death from disease or starvation. In this crucible of fear and death, you see the core of humanity stripped bare. You see people performing small acts of incredible kindness. A woman sharing her water with a feverish man, a man holding a dying friend's hand. And you see acts of terrible desperation. Someone stealing the bread from a weaker slave, fights breaking out over a scrap of spilled grain. The rules that governed your world are gone, and what is left is a raw, terrifying struggle. You are no longer just a slave. You are a survivor, clinging to life in the ruins of a broken world. And the only certainty is that nothing will ever be the same again. Your life is governed by power, both seen and unseen. The master and his overseer control your body, but there is another structure, another hierarchy that speaks to your soul. This is the world of the gods, of ritual, and of belief. It is both a comfort and a burden, a source of hope and a wellspring of fear. You do not spend your time contemplating the great state gods of Rome. Jupiter, Juno, Minerva, these are the patrons of the empire, the master's gods. Their temples are in the cities. Their rituals are performed by priests in fine robes. Their language is the formal Latin you do not understand. They are as distant and inaccessible to you as the Dominus himself. Praying to Jupiter feels like trying to get the attention of the master of pointless and dangerous exercise. Your spiritual life is more local, more personal, more chaotic. It is a messy collection of beliefs, a tapestry woven from the threads of Roman folk tradition. The agricultural spirits of the land and the half-remembered gods of the place you or your parents were stolen from at the heart of the estates. Official religious life are the Lares and Penates. These are the household gods, the spirits that protect the master's family and property, which includes you. The Vilicus, acting as the master's proxy, maintains their small shrine, the Lararium, located near the hearth of his own house. You might see him leave offerings there, a small cake, a splash of wine, a garland of flowers. You understand that these offerings are meant to keep the estate prosperous and running smoothly. The health of the livestock, the success of the harvest, and the obedience of the slaves are all under the purview of these spirits. You have a vested interest in them being happy, but they are not your gods. They are part of the system that owns you. Their concern is for the property, not the people who are property. Your own beliefs are quieter, practiced in secret, you see? Divinity and the world around you. An ancient, gnarled fig tree is not just a tree. It is home to a genius loci, a spirit of the place. You might press your hand to its bark when you pass, whispering a quiet request for strength. The well that provides your water has a spirit, and you might let the first drops from your cup fall to the ground as a silent offering of thanks and appeasement. You do this without thinking, an inherited gesture of respect for the powers that dwell in the land itself. Many of you carry the ghosts of other gods with you. The man who sleeps next to you, a Gaul with strange tattoos, sometimes chants softly in a language you don't know. He is praying to Epona, the horse goddess, or perhaps Tyrannus, the god of thunder. A woman who works in the vineyard, captured in Egypt, might secretly scratch the symbol of an Ankh, the key of life, into the dirt. She whispers prayers to Isis, the great mother goddess, whose worship promises compassion and life after death. These mystery cults, like the cult of Isis or the Persian god Mithras, are incredibly appealing. Unlike the cold transactional state, religion of Rome, they offer a personal connection to the divine. They speak of suffering and redemption, themes that resonate deeply with your own experience. Their rituals are often more inclusive, sometimes allowing slaves to participate alongside the free. To be part of such a cult is to have a secret identity, a community of belief that exists outside the master's control. It is a small act of spiritual rebellion. These meetings happen in secret, at night, in a hidden clearing or a cellar. The shared faith, a powerful bond in a life of forced and meaningless association. Religion is also a tool of control. The concept of sin and divine punishment is a powerful one. You are told that the gods favor order, that they respect the hierarchies of the world. A slave's duty is to be obedient. To be rebellious or lazy is not just a transgression against the master, but a sin against the gods who ordained this social order. This idea is a heavy weight. It suggests that your suffering is not just your lot in life. It is divinely sanctioned. To fight against it is to fight against the cosmos itself. You look for comfort where you can find it. You pray to specific gods for specific needs. You might pray to Febris, the goddess of fever, not to praise her, but to beg her to stay away. You might leave a small offering for Robagus, the god of rust and mildew, hoping to protect the precious grain supply. Religion is often a negotiation with forces that can harm you. It is a spiritual protection racket. You believe in fate and the fatum. The idea that your life's path is already written can be both a source of despair and a strange comfort. It means your suffering is not your fault. You are simply playing the part you were assigned. This fatalism can lead to a kind of resigned endurance. There is no point in raging against the storm if the storm was destined to happen. All you can do is lower your head and wait for it to pass. This complex web of belief is the invisible structure that holds your psychological world together. It provides explanations for the inexplicable, offers small moments of personal agency in a life that has none, and dangles the slimmest threads of hope, whether for a good harvest, the avoidance of sickness, or in the secret promises of the mystery cults, a final justice in the afterlife. It is a faith born of necessity, cobbled together from the fragments of broken cultures and the ever-present fears of a brutal world. It is the spiritual air you breathe, as thick and vital as the dusty air of the fields. And so, the question hangs in the suffocating air of the barracks and the silent exhaustion of the fields. After all this, the crushing labor, the gnawing hunger, the constant fear, the utter lack of hope, the question is not why you might collapse, but a harder one. Why did you not revolt? Where was the great uprising? Where was the moment you and the others took your sickles and your hoes, the tools of your oppression, and turned them against the overseer? Why did you not burn the master's villa to the ground? History remembers the name Spartacus, a whisper of a time when the impossible almost happened, but his was the exception. A fire that burned bright and was brutally extinguished. A story told to you and others as a cautionary tale, a lesson in the futility of rage. For every Spartacus, there were a million like you, silent, enduring. Why? Look around you. Look at the man sleeping beside you, his body a roadmap of scars from the vitus. Look at the woman who sorts the grain, her fingers nimble, but her back permanently stooped. You did not revolt because the system was designed with chilling perfection to prevent it. You were kept exhausted, perpetually on the edge of starvation. Your energy spent entirely on the task of surviving until the next sunrise. Revolution requires a surplus of energy, a spark of hope that has not been extinguished by relentless toil. You were divided. You are a collection of strangers, stolen from different lands, speaking different languages, worshipping different gods. The Gaul fears the German. The Briton distrusts the Syrian. The master understood this. A divided workforce is a compliant one. Trust is a luxury you cannot afford when the person next to you might be an informer, hoping for a slightly larger ration of bread by betraying a whispered plot, and the consequences were absolute. You have seen what happens to rebels. You have seen men crucified along the main road, their bodies left to rot for weeks as a message. A spectacle of agony. You learned the lesson well. Open rebellion was not a fight for freedom. It was a race to an agonizing death. So you did not fight. It's not in that way. But this is the secret you must understand. This is the quiet truth at the heart of your story. Your survival was your rebellion. Your endurance was your victory. You were meant to be a tool, an instrumentum vocale, a thing that could be used up and discarded. You were meant to be broken, to have your humanity scoured out of you until only the capacity for labor remained. And yet, it did not. Your rebellion was in the secret prayer whispered in your native tongue. It was in the story of your homeland, told in the darkness of the barracks to a child born here who would never see. That was an act of defiance. You were preserving a world the master sought to erase. Your rebellion was in the creation of family. The master owned you. He owned your children. He could sell you apart on a whim. Yet you loved, formed unions. Partnerships of shared suffering that blossomed into genuine affection. You held your child, a child who was legally the master's property, and you looked into their eyes and saw not an asset, but your legacy. To love in a world that treated you as incapable of such a thing was the ultimate act of defiance. Your rebellion was in the small acts of sabotage, the tool that accidentally broke, the work that was done just slowly enough to not earn a beating, but slowly enough to cost the master a tiny fraction of his profit. The shared glance with another slave that said, "I see you. I see your weariness. We are in this together." These were the tiny wars you waged every single day. Your rebellion was in the simple, profound, impossible act of getting up one more time. When your body screamed for rest, when your spirit was a hollowed-out shell, when the bleak, unchanging landscape of your future stretched out before you, you got up. You took the sickle in your hand. You bent your aching back, and you endured. You were not supposed to. The system was designed to grind you into dust, but you refused to become dust. This is your strength. It is not the strength of a soldier in a gleaming helmet. It is the strength of the weed that grows through a crack in the stone. It is a quiet, stubborn, and unbreakable strength. You found your humanity not in fighting the pyramid, but in building a life in the single stone you were allotted at its base. You survived. You raised children who survived. You passed on a story, a song, a memory. You maintained the spark of your own soul in the face of a system designed to extinguish it, and in the long, silent annals of the forgotten, that is. Not a tragedy. That is a triumph.